Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So checking out a very fun, very interesting, and ultimately disappointing due to no fault of my own video for you guys this evening. You guys are going to be talking about the Limited Run Games issue where they sold burnt CDRs for the re-release of D on the 3DO. On one side of the coin, they have reissued the discs, and I'm going to be opening them live on camera to make sure they actually press them this time. But on the other, more disappointing side of the coin, the old co-founder that's left Limited Run Games stated that the other co-founder always planned on selling burnt discs because it would keep more profits for them, and they didn't expect gamers to ever actually notice it. And to say this is disappointing would be an understatement. This is pretty despicable on the part of Limited Run Games to do this knowingly and try to take advantage of their customers to save a few dollars. And trust me, the difference in price between CDRs and pressed discs is not that big. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars here. Well, when this was found out, I opened my copy live on camera, and I basically confirmed that they were CDRs, and a bunch of different news outlets picked up this story, and it wasn't just me that noticed this. Todd Gill from RetroFrog also talked about it on Twitter, so credit to him for bringing it to people's attention as well. And when I opened it up, true to form, there were CDR discs for every single game in the D collection. The only thing that was pressed was the audio soundtrack CD, and this is not what people bought. I purchased this just to support the idea of 3DO re-releases, and the fact that I absolutely love and admire the work of Kenji Eno, and I wanted to support that in the future. But all we ended up getting were CDRs you could go out to Staples and buy on a 100-pack spindle. And it's not like this was cheap either. It was $64.99, and nowhere in any of the information did they ever state that they were going to be selling CDR games. And it really does seem like Limited Run Games don't expect anyone to open up these limited editions. But of course, there are 3D fans out there, and we really do want to check these things out. It's the only reason I purchased it. And when they actually talked about this, and we'll get into it in a little bit later, they stated that they were having trouble pressing discs that would be read on a 3DO because of the actual format. Now, I can tell you right now unequivocally, there's nothing unique about the 3DO and its disc format. The only difference between this or a PlayStation 1 game or any other CD you would press is that the sector size for Opera file systems is slightly different. But anybody can go talk to a disc replicator right now, send them a 3DO ISO, and they can press it to a disc, no issues whatsoever. So when Limited Run Games stated that they did CDRs for better compatibility, that was absolutely an untruth. These disk drives are old, a lot of times they break, and they do not like to read CDRs. Putting it on a CDR meant that more people were going to have problems from the beginning. You do not want to use burnt discs on the 3DO. It just does not work well whatsoever. And that honestly was just their subterfuge to try to get you to think that they were doing you a favor. And now the Limited Run co-founder Douglas Bogart, who left the company last year, stated that the plan was always to sell these CDRs, and he advised against it, but other people in the company were advocating for it. And that's how you end up with a release like D on 3DO that was on burnt discs. And I'm sure they chose 3DO because they probably didn't think many people actually would notice. It was a very limited run, pun very much intended for the company's name. And again, that's just a CDR in a case. I mean, what in the absolute hell were they thinking was going to happen? Did they really think that nobody would ever open it up, that no one would have problems with the discs on their 3DO? Because a lot of people I talked to could not get it to play. And then 2 months after, I did a follow-up video that also ended up in the news stating that they still had not done anything on this. They had basically gone quiet, but at least they reissued the discs, and that is not absolving them of what they did in the first place. It is just stating that they actually came through and pressed the disc, what they should have done in the first place. And again, they didn't seem to have any trouble this time, and that's because there should be no trouble making a 3DO disc. It is not difficult in any way, shape, or form. Now, if we take a look at Douglas Bogart's direct statement, I'm going to read it in my reading voice. I wasn't there when they sold CDRs to customers, but I was there when he proposed the idea, and I, with a few other co-workers, told him it was a bad idea to sell burnt discs to customers. But his response was it was cheaper and they wouldn't play or notice it. I had hoped he got off that idea, but clearly didn't. That is why you got CDRs in a box when you bought a copy of D. The other co-founder was just trying to save some money, and GameSack actually ginned up this original comment here from an interview on Medium that was deleted, so credit to GameSack, awesome channel definitely, for finding this statement and bringing it to other people's attention so people like me can talk about it, because this is absolutely embarrassing. They knew what they were doing. This wasn't about manufacturing issues, and like I stated in a previous video, that never held any weight with anyone who knows anything about how the 3DO works, because we know how the discs are made. So when we ended up with CDRs in a case, we basically all knew that they were just trying to save money, but now we have the confirmation that that was a proposed plan in 2023 when Limited Run Games talked about it in their offices. They were just trying to save some cash, and maybe they really did expect nobody to open this thing up. I opened it up because I wanted to play it, and trust me, I own multiple copies of this game. I didn't have to, I was just doing it to support the concept of 3DO, and that Medium post has been removed recently, but we still have some archives of it. And it really just is embarrassing that they tried to pass this off as a technical hurdle. They should know that for every platform out there, especially niche ones like 3DO, there are fans, there are hardware engineers that go through this stuff and know how it works from start to finish, front to back, up to down. If you take a look at an original 3DO disc, it is pressed. It's no different than a PlayStation 1 disc. It's no different than a Sega Saturn disc. It's no different than a PC Engine Super CD disc. It is just a CD with data on it. The only disc format that would be basically impossible to replicate these days would be the Dreamcast GD-ROM. You could totally do a 700 megabyte disc that was pressed and just kind of use that mil CD support, but you just can't get the gigabyte disc out. The only time you should see a CDR when it comes to 3DO games is either if you burnt one yourself, or if you're like me and you love to collect Killing Time betas. And you'll see here the quality of the CDR from the 90s is still exceeding the actual quality of the Limited Run Games disc, because this will still run in my 3DO. 2 of the 5 Limited Run Game discs that they sent me do not boot whatsoever. The reflectivity layer is just absolutely that poor. And again, this is just absolutely insane that this could happen in the first place. How much money did Limited Run Games actually save versus the insane amount of bad press that they bought themselves and will continue to buy for them? But let's actually open up the replacement and see what they put inside of it. And honestly, I'm pretty sure I know that they are pressed discs, but part of me was still expecting to find some sort of chicanery in this set. Like they couldn't actually get it right even when they were completely cut out. And I am doing this in a no camera cut situation, that way you know, and I'm sure everyone takes me at my word, that what you're seeing in the case is real, and it really isn't going to be that disappointing, guys. There are pressed discs in there, but we will talk about it when we get inside. I do wish they had changed the case format though. A small complaint, and honestly nowhere near as bad as burnt discs, but this case definitely just does not hold up. The one with the CDRs in it, the third time I opened it, I snapped it and it just fell apart. So Limited Run Games, if you're going to be doing these sets, I would look into some better cases, because you always state you sell a premium product, and I will tell you right now that this case is made out of wood screws, duct tape, and absolute dreams that it's ever going to last. The one in the original with the CDRs is already broken. The third time I opened it, it snapped at the hinges. And I will say that I no longer care about this release. The taste left over in my mouth is absolute garbage, and even though we have pressed CDs now, this should have never been a situation in the first place. I should have never had to make one, let alone 3 videos talking about how absolutely asinine and ridiculous it was that they would actually burn CDRs and send them to consumers for a collector's edition. You would never expect something like this to happen, but it did, and I wouldn't be surprised that at some point in time after the bad press dies down, they try to do something similar again, because this should have never happened. And now with the statements of the old co-founder stating that this was a plan of somebody else in the company to save money and to preserve profits, we know that this was just 100% malicious. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't down to manufacturing issues. It was down to greed, and that is the worst thing you can do. I keep seeing more and more of these situations ending up in retro games where something is going on where they want fans' money and don't want to deliver the products, and it absolutely just pisses me off. Don't treat your fans poorly. Give them a quality product for the money that you're trading, and everyone will be happy. And you'll see here the old disc. Just look at the reflectivity on Dogpen here. You can see how this would actually cause a laser to have issues based upon how CDRs are made. And if we remove this CDR from the top and actually take a look at the press disc, you're going to see a big difference just in the optics of it. It's about the only way to talk about reflectivity on camera, but you can totally see just how much clearer that is, and the laser is going to have a better time with it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the box, put it on this shelf, and leave it there as a reminder that there are unscrupulous people in the world that really do want to just get your money and not deliver what they promised. And you know me, if you watch this channel, I am not a negative video maker, but I do care about things like this, not just because it's 3DO, not just because it's from one of my favorite games, but I do not want anybody to trade their money for something, anything less than what they were promised. I advocate for companies that do the right things. I talk about companies companies that do stuff like this in a negative way, but honestly, all I care about is when you purchase something, you get what you're paying for, and in the instance of doing something like this to my favorite game on 3DO, it really did absolutely just piss me off. But hey, at least we have pressed this, and now we know that limited run games always plan this from the beginning. Sure that if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, but I'll see you next time. Bye bye.